Welcome to Dialogue This Week. In this corner, we invite guests from in and out of Korea to talk about a wide variety of issues, ranging from culture, sports, to the latest trends around the world. The city of Seoul recently held the 2021 Seoul Gourmet Week, dubbed Taste of Seoul, both online and offline, to promote Seoul's unique food culture. The Seoul Tourism Organization hosted the festival in an effort to lift the spirits of citizens borne out from the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Now, this past week was also the first week of Seoul City's Living with COVID-19 campaign. Now, this means restrictions on restaurant operating hours have been lifted. As the world returns to normal, what's the new normal in the food world? For an in-depth look into the latest food trends, we're joined by Ryan Phillips, culinary professor at Suwon Food and Tourism College, who's also the chief and owner of Barefoot Gardens organic farm and event facility through the line. Ryan, it's great to have you on our show.
My pleasure. Good morning.
Now, since you're a culinary professor, Ryan, a chef and a farmer, what has the last year and a half been like for you?
Well, we've definitely had to jump through some hoops with COVID, but the challenges have been made life more interesting. Definitely smaller groups out on the farm. I've seen a lot of restaurants close down. Luckily, places have survived, and that's just like any other time. It's just through the hard work and coming up with on-the-fly solutions to these issues.
How are culinary academics in South Korea compared to other countries you've experienced?
Well, over the 15 years that I've been here, I've seen it improve tenfold. When I first got here, the understanding of Western cuisine, at least, was quite, I must say, quite skewed from reality when it comes to authentic cuisines from around the world. Now, about 8 or 9 years ago, that really started to shift, and it's been beautiful to be here at that time to be able to see, culinary students now in Korea really being on par with those anywhere around the world.
And also, as we turn towards a post or with COVID-19 recovery period, the nature of culinary schools, ultimately requires a return to in-person classes in the kitchen. But for restaurants, the pandemic has affected operation styles and hygiene habits. So what COVID-19 prompted changes do you expect to become permanent?
Well, we've already seen over the past few years here and around the world the implementation of things like HACCP, H-A-C-C-P. Those are very strict regulations to keep everybody safe and healthy, especially on packaged goods. But those kind of regulations are going to move slowly into the restaurant industry throughout the future. Things like UV cabinets for cutting boards or other utensils in the kitchen. Things like, nobody likes to wear a mask all the time, but I wouldn't be surprised if new regulations come forth for different kinds of face guards and things while working with food.
Now, Ryan, let's talk food now. When you first came to Korea a decade and a half ago, what was the food scene like in South Korea, and how has this changed over the past years?
Whenever I run into another foreigner who's been here as long as myself, we always have to talk about how it used to be so different. You couldn't find authentic foreign foods 15 years ago. But as Koreans began to travel abroad so much more, I think 15 years ago, only about 20% of Koreans traveled abroad. And now before the pandemic, it reached about 80% that were traveling abroad annually. And with that, they brought back the authentic flavors or the love for those authentic flavors. And it's just been so nice to see that change and that boom of authentic food, which now is going into more creative things, taking that authentic flavor and then spinning it with more Korean ingredients. I'm always getting deeper and deeper into hanshik. That's one of the reasons for starting the farm is to grow and make things like fermented soybean paste, or the meju, or the doenjang, to learn these things while here, because there's no better place to do that.
Ryan, you had a traditional American BBQ restaurant. What would you say worked and didn't work in terms of goals you had set out for that chapter of your career?
Well, definitely you want to start out authentic. Whenever a new cuisine comes to a country, I think the best place to start is with a very, very authentic product and then fly straight. One of the most common mistakes that new restaurant owners make is in the first 6 months or a year, they might start changing things or cutting corners to save money. And you really have to just fly straight and don't panic, regardless of what's happening, and keep that customer base growing. If you start changing things, we say you don't want to change horses midstream. In Texas, a lot of folks might say that. What that means is while you're crossing the river, while you're going through the tough time, you don't want to change your plan. And that's just a big thing to remember in a restaurant, running a restaurant anywhere in the world, I bet.
Now, thanks to the Hallyu effect, recognition of Korean food abroad, it doesn't stop at kimchi now. So what dishes or food ingredients native to South Korea are adaptable to foreign cuisine?
Oh, boy. I like to think just about everything. But, when I've taken some flavors back with me, it takes a little time for people to get used to some things. But we're seeing more and more things like laver snacks in the big box stores around the world being exported from Korea. That you didn't see that 10 years ago. But now you can buy in bulk of kim snacks with coconut or with peanuts. When I travel abroad now and I want to make hanshik for friends and family, I don't have to carry those ingredients with me anymore. It's so easy to find those ingredients for sale pretty much anywhere in the United States these days.
Now, you also own and run Barefoot Gardens, a 1,700 square meter farm in Hwasong. So first, let me ask, what led you to venture out on this endeavor?
Well, 15 years ago, looking for ingredients for culinary classes, I would be told that they were too expensive or they were unavailable. And I was new in Korea that time, and I found that hard to believe. So we tried a garden club with the students to grow our own herbs for classes and possibly save money and learn something about gardening at the same time. Unfortunately, the garden club failed miserably. Summer vacation, when all the students go away, it's not a good time to take care of plants. So just about everything died before anybody came back in the fall. But I became hooked, and some other colleagues became very hooked on organic farming. And now we've got Barefoot Gardens, which is an organic farm and a private event facility. We had over 1,500 people out there last month for carving pumpkins, picking pumpkins, carving pumpkins, and Halloween festivities with food there on the farm. We've got a big seafood event this Saturday as all this new seasonal seafood is coming to the markets as the weather turns a little colder now.
And finally, before we let you go, the people of South Korea are far more aware of different dietary and dining options today. How does organic and farm-to-table food preparation fit in with South Korean culture?
Well, I must say that, a lot of countries left farm to table for a few decades and then have come back to it, right? Korea never really left farm to table. You could always find a restaurant that has their farm or garden outside the place, and they harvest there and serve it daily. So farm to table is kind of a funny concept in Korea sometimes. That being said, on our farm, you can actually sit in the garden next to the vegetables, herbs, produce that we're harvesting right there, maybe with you, and then making different dishes for you right there for course dinners on the farm.
Well, it certainly was a fruitful and satisfying discussion, but I'm afraid we'll have to wrap up at this point. Anyhow, thank you so much, Ryan, for your time. Hope to speak to you again soon.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.